Hello chess learners, today I am going to cover a truly masterpiece game by Torch and Stockfish. Both are the super chess engines, stands with more than 3,800 ELO ratings. Today we will dive into the chess lessons on how computers think and apply strategies and tactics to him opponent. So in the first game, I'm going to show you Torch has the white pieces. E4 c5, it's a Sicilian defense from Stockfish. It's an open Sicilian defense. And in this position, Stockfish plays knight bd7, which is a whatever move, but then plays a6. So it basically played a knight or Sicilian with a6 and then knight bd7, which is a bit of a sideline. And Torch immediately plays g4. It does not go back to traditional developing principles of moving bishops. It pushes g4 right away. Its intention to do that is to try to take advantage of the slightly inaccurate development of its opponent. So it plays pawn to g4 and it's ready to go g5 at a moment's notice, but it does like this to defend its center. A couple moves later, it plays the move g5. In these Sicilian structures, the most important thing is the d5 square. If white can successfully win the battle for the d5 square, white will have an outpost there. White will put pressure there and there and there. And life is going to be good. A couple moves later, we have pure unleashed Sicilian defense. The Sicilian is very much like this. Opposite side castling. Black is trying to play b5, a5, rook c8, queen a5. The bishop on e6 goes this way. White is trying to go like this and f4 and bishop e2. I mean, like, you cannot ask for a better opening for two bots to play. h4, b5. I mean, they're just firing away at each other. The king slides over, which is a very common thing to do when you castle queenside to prepare for the attack. Knight takes b3, c takes b3. Not a takes b3, but c takes b3 because now the c file is open and you've built up a very powerful cluster of pawns. Had you taken with the pawn, black would have maybe gotten a5, a4, but this way you've created a very powerful brick wall. Now knight to g3. Some of you may have been wondering about this move, or maybe you're not paying attention. You're just mesmerized by my voice. And yeah, this is very much a thing. The problem is that now the knight took the bishop, but the bishop never got a chance to move in this game and the pawns are simply going to walk up the board. A couple moves later, h5 by white, b4 by black, right back in your face. The knight goes to d5 and I told you the winner of that square will win the battle for this opening and probably the game. Queen e6 and the queen just goes back to d3. If you'd like to attack your opponent, making a trade like this does not make any sense because you have now lost the battle for that square because you're never going to get there. This is under a little bit of fire and the position is just equal. So the queen goes back, a5. There's h6. Okay, a very long and grinding game. Rook c8, pawn takes g7, and now a4. So Stockfish is just throwing it right back in your face. It looks like white has absolutely nothing to do over here, so white tries to fight back. The rook goes back to a5 and still pressure is happening on that side of the board. We have bishop to d2, putting some pressure on the pawn on b4. And in this position, black plays rook a8, hitting the a2 pawn, a4. If you take en passant, I'm going to take your rook. So d5. Black is exploding the center of the board. Here comes white's king. Rook h1, queen to g6, pinning. Rook h6 pushes the queen back, and now the queen slides out of the way. Black takes in the center, white takes in the center, and black retreats. And from this position, Torch pulls the brakes on the attack and basically says, Stockfish survived the attack and definitely fought me on equal grounds. But my pawn is going to be decisive. It's going to have this outside pass pawn throughout this endgame that is going to restrict the black pieces. And slowly, it just begins trading. It doesn't even mind being down material. You cannot actually take this free bishop. The threat is rook g2. If you take queen d8 here, check. And it's made, As you can see, in 2 moves because I take the bishop and then I take the queen. Black's position is just in a bit of disarray. You can play bishop to f4. I'm going to play bishop c5, threatening checkmate, rook c2, and I win these 2 pawns. And now it's just a matter of time. And that's exactly what Torch does. And it really is a matter of time because it takes nearly another 50 moves. But slowly, slowly, we win the pawns. I mean, there's like some ridiculous tactics here with the bishop coming down and trading, and you see the pawns survive. That's the most important thing, and this is just smooth sailing. The king joins the party, the queen, the bishop trying to get a trade. Centralizing slowly you advance, and so the king walks all the way to the other side of the board avoiding perpetual check. Queen e8, queen c6, bishop c5, and the rest of this game is mostly just ceremony. You know, just out of respect, they play on until a checkmate. This was a very fun game. I mean, it was punctuated like, you know, h5 before, just both sides throwing these attacking pawns at each other. And when it was all said and done, it was actually Torch beating Stockfish by using the countermeasure, the defensive measure to create a long-term outside pass pawn component to this game. This was a nice game from Torch, and Torch had a couple of nice games. Here's another one that Torch played. This one was more of like a ready, and then it was Black playing a reverse London, which is a thing, and this one was again opposite side casting. This time White was on the short side, and Black was on the long side. Bishop f4, bishop d6, and we had a big exchange in the center. Bishop for knight, and then bishop for knight, and you just think about how completely ridiculous computers are. Like no human being on the planet plays this move. It's an insane move to play. How could you possibly give up the bishop that you've put in front of your king for what? Right, how is that possible? Now you just have weak light squares. No, it doesn't care at all. Bishop to g5, and the idea is that if the rook moves to h8, let's say, now I play this, the queen is forced to c8, and White is likely just completely winning because the queen is just jailed. I mean, the queen, there's nothing for the queen to do. Knight b5, b4, b5. So instead of that, Black, aka Stockfish, takes in the center and gives up the rook. So they get a bishop and a pawn for a rook with the possibility of attacking h5. h4 when Stockfish attacks with Black, it's very fun because it doesn't think it's any worse now, and it just brings the knight back. Knight takes e4, and a couple of moves later, it just starts playing h5, and the thing is, with White, if you acknowledge this like a human being, I'll play g5, and if you take, I'm not even gonna take back. I'm just gonna play h4, and then I'm gonna play f6, and I mean, I'm slowly going to absolutely ruin your king. I'm gonna take and mate you somehow on the light squares here. So the rook to c1 is played instead. h4 like Stockfish is just going for it with the black pieces, sacrificing a little bit of material, trying to create this big attack. g4, pushing pawns in front of its king. Now here, Stockfish finds a crazy idea. The bishop is hanging, but it just lets it hang. h3, you can't actually take, of course, because queen g5, queen g2. But the insane thing is you actually can. Queen g5, king f1, rook h4, e4, queen g2. The king actually escapes to e2 and... Well, that would be nice, but rook f4, rook f1, and there's some ridiculous lines here where White is actually not losing. But Torch just decides I'm not gonna enter into any of that. I'm gonna centralize my queen, and now we have a very complex transition to an endgame. But we see Torch having very good longevity, doing a very nice job defending its king, and Torch's patience. It does not mind. It pokes and prods and improves its position very slowly. And then here it finds a beautiful tactic, queen d5, which attacks the rook, and when the rook moves, it sacrifices its queen to split the black pawns, win back the queen, and it's a very slow process. Black has 2 extra pawns, but it's a bishop and 2 pawns for a rook, and the rook is just too strong. The rook comes in, the knight reroutes all the way back to b3, c2, and slowly Torch is going to make Stockfish work for it. There are too many weaknesses, and you just cannot compete against the rook in the endgame. All white needs to win this is a pawn. That's it, and that's exactly what Torch survives with. It gives a check, it plays rook a4, and this is a winning endgame. As long as it's able to keep its pawn, it has an opportunity to win this endgame. Maybe with a little bit more time on the clock, Stockfish would have found a way to draw it, but it's just a matter of time. Torch walks in, forces the black pieces to the back rank, infiltrates, and it all comes down to 1 pawn. 97, 95, rook h8, and you just cannot defend yourself. It swarms in the endgame, and this one takes over 100 moves. But Torch doesn't even promote a queen. It just plays knight f5 and rook g7, and it's a checkmate. What an incredible game by both players. I hope you enjoyed my content. Is it so? Then consider to like and subscribe to my channel to get more episodes, and you can also explore to my other chess videos as well if you want to improve your chess skills. So bye bye.